So all these piezo injectors have an IQA adjustment number on there. This IQA calibration code is the calibration number per injector per cylinder. So anytime you ever change the injectors out, you need to put this number back inside of the ECU. And what exactly is this number for? Well, this number tells the ECU what the calibration of that individual injector is. So it's a combination of letters and numbers. You know, a lot of the magnetic injectors were 6 digits long. When they went to a piezo injector, these are all gone to a 7-digit IQA code. So 6 of those digits are going to correspond to fuel flow, and another digit is going to correspond to a voltage correction. And what does that really mean? Well, as these injectors are manufactured down the assembly line, every single one of them goes onto a flow bench to see exactly where the injector flows. And if there's a deviation of what its spec is, it comes up with a certain calibration number that the ECU will take and make a flow correction into its internal mapping. Yeah, anytime you replace an injector, you do a service on the injector, you got to write down the injector coding number. You got to go back into the ECU and perform an injector coding process where I tell the ECU what the calibration, what the coding of that injector is in order to ensure that I got proper flow rate out of that particular cylinder. Now the controllers can do some adaptations, but if they're starting way off the spectrum here, it's really hard for them to self-adapt to a different flow rate of an injector. So it's key to always put the proper IQA number in per cylinder for the injector that's actually running in that engine.
In this example, we're going to talk about the IQA, and we're going to show you how you perform this process. But then we're also going to show you what happens if there's a number's been installed or it has not been coded correctly. So here we're going to go into the scan tool, and in this case, the value we want to read is number 71. That's for injector number 1, and that is the 7-digit number. There's another one, be injector number 2. 73, that's our injector 3, injector 4. So when we're looking at this at cylinder number 4, where does that number come from? Right here is the number on top of the injector. This is the high pressure line coming in. So the 8SRX7EI, that is the injector itself. What is that doing? It's mapping up this injector, its flow characteristics, the way it was born when it was built, to the map that's inside the controller itself. So now what we're going to do, we're running this vehicle at idle, and the scan tool shows us what kind of a deviation do we have. What's the purpose? If the crankshaft speed sensor says this cylinder is moving very quickly, or it's moving slowly, what it will do is take away or add fuel to create a balance in the engine. You can see that a few injectors are taking fuel away, and a few of the injectors are adding a little bit of fuel. So one of the things I want you to pay attention to is the red one. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to put in a different number. We're going to trick the controller and say, we put a new injector in this, and here's the new number. We're going to see if it's capable of making an adjustment to this particular issue. So here's the number we're putting in. This is an injector we took off the shelf. So this injector is not physically in the car. We're just telling the engine controller that I just put a new injector into you. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and put that factor in there. It wants us to save that number. Am I sure? Yes, I'm sure I want to put that number in the controller. So you can see this process is pretty easy to do. Let's go ahead and read that number, and we're going to go ahead and see what's stored in there. So yep, we can verify that the number that we installed. Now, what are we doing here? We've told the controller that we put a different injector in cylinder number 1. We're going to start the vehicle up. We're going to see what happens with the performance of the vehicle. So the red, if you remember correctly, that's the one that we told it, here's the new injector. Now look at how much of a difference in deviation the red one has compared to the others. In other words, this cylinder is not performing as well as it should. So what is the controller going to do? The controller is going to make an adjustment. So you can see that very quickly, this happened within about 15 to 20 seconds. We're marching this back, basically adjusting the fuel quantity to get a balance in the engine. So we remember, here's minus 0.12 milligrams per stroke. So even though we told the controller that there's a new injector in here, we used the original one in there, what did it do? The controller made an adjustment and brought that back into proper operating range. So these new common rail vehicles have a significant ability to try and keep the engine running as smoothly as possible. It's a very quick, easy way to check to see. Also a quick way to check to see if one of those injectors is not performing correctly.